Delta 2648, descend and maintain 7,000.
Alright, descend to 7,000, Delta 2648.
Boy 3130, reduce speed to 210.
210 speed on board 3130.
Sorry, United 887, approaching the bridge for 2 left.
United 887, San Francisco Chair, wing come, runway 28 left, third line.
30 left, third line, United 887.
Hello everyone, hope everybody out there is doing well. Southern Aviators here. So in this video I want to tackle flight planning. I actually intend to do a series on this. I think it does require a series because there's lots of different things to flight planning, and in this I'm going to try to cover what I would consider a regional bias as to how you would dispatch. If you're going from one particular region to another, it can vary in what you would do or what you would consider, depending on where you're dispatching to and from. So in this video, I'm going to cover dispatching or flight planning from the United States to Europe. It's kind of a common routing, I guess, that a lot of people use. I don't know if it's the most common, but it is something that I see a lot. So I thought I'd start off with it, but then later I intend to cover different flight planning aspects from different regions of the world. But I'll start off with this one from the US to Europe. All right, so for starters, we got to figure out where we're going from and where we're going to. So I was kind of thinking that I would do a John F. Kennedy to Frankfurt. I guess on the reason is because those are two common airports that a lot of people know. So you can go here, and I see Singapore does it, and an A380, Delta does it, and a 767-400. But I'll go ahead and use the Delta flight. I don't have a 767 that I actually use, at least not anymore. I used to do the level D, but not anymore. But that's beside the point. Aircraft type doesn't matter a whole lot. I mean, unless you want to, basically do it as realistic as possible and fly the actual aircraft type. But for this purpose, I'm just getting into the route structure and how you would plan it. So the aircraft type isn't really important or necessary for what I'm trying to do here. So getting back here, looks like it's so first thing I do is I put in Delta 4 and where it's going to and from. So JFK to where we're going again, Frankfurt. It's an international flight and it's scheduled. So let's see what the flight times are on it as far as what time we're supposed to depart and arrive. So looking here, looks like scheduled is 23:59 and then arriving at 07:40, and that's in Z time. That's what I want to work in because I can get some accuracy out of that. So see, 23:59 arriving at 07:40, so the en route time is filled in automatically there, as PFPX users out there are aware of. I'm gonna go ahead and use the 767. You see here I don't even have a Delta airplane, but it's beside the point. I think you guys still get what we're trying to get at here. And this switched back to long range for some reason. Alright, so anyway, so now that we have that done, let's go ahead and save it so we can use it for a plan. Alright, so now it's populated here. So we have it here going off from JFK to Frankfurt. Alright, so for starters, I'm going to take a peek at the track. See, you only got eastbound alive, and that's okay. That's what we're using anyway. So the first thing I want to know is what is the most efficient way to get to JFK to Frankfurt. It doesn't mean I'm going to actually get to route this way, but I at least want to get an idea of what the best line is, and then I can try to go from there. So, alright, let's go ahead and go on the plan flight. I guess I shouldn't start from that first. Let me backtrack. So, starting off with the flight, okay, so you do have to pick your departure runway. So, looks like right now in JFK, looking at this, winds are 040 at 14. So I want to try to pick a runway that lines up with that. And they picked 13 right, but I believe, if I remember right, you know what, yeah, I think actually 13 right is the one they use there typically. Arriving ETA is going to be sometime around 7Z. So I'm going to try to go to this TAF and see what's going on at 7Z. 23929. So wind's supposed to be 230 at 12 at that time. So we'll go with 25 right for the landing runway. All right, taxi out unless you think you're gonna have some taxi delays getting out. You know, you kind of leave that as 15 minutes. Shouldn't take too much, and taxiing shouldn't be a big deal either. Excuse me. All right, so no reason to really screw around with the weights. I'm going to run with a cost index of 10, and I won't change that unless I need to get an on-time arrival. So that's about it. So for payload, I'm just going to make something up here. Generally, sometimes the payload will be around 410. So you have to decide what you want your payload to be. I don't really get into the passenger counts and cargo and baggage and breaking it down because weight is weight. It doesn't matter. It's just, like I say, it's not going to change the fuel burn if you have the weight in passengers versus cargo or whatever. So let's put this on U.S. flag for our flight plan and fuel policy. Alright, so here, extra time. I'm not going to fill that out just yet. I'm going to get into that a little bit later. I usually add that in the end to figure out how much buffer I want in my fuel planning. Alright, so cost, don't get into that. So kind of a nuance. Alright, so for the route. So for starters, when you're planning from the US to Europe and you're going to be planning on a track, in the United States, they don't want you planning any old way from JFK to the tracks. They have ways that they want you to get there. And each day they change, so you have to stay updated on that. So first thing I'm going to do is figure out what track is going to get me over there the fastest. Alright, so I hit Auto Plus. That brings up the optimization window. And I want minimum time. What is the quickest way to get there? And I want to do it with upper airspace. Alright, so once we do that, I should be able to hit find. It'll build a route. Now this route, I really have no intentions of using it at all, but I just want to know what track is going to be the best. So it did optimize based on the winds. And you know what, I'm going to redo that real quick because I probably should have said something. I'm assuming that you guys might have already known I was getting at, and I probably shouldn't assume. So minimum time, upper airspace. I want it to be wind optimized. Let's see, where's that option? I guess it's been changed. It used to be an option for wind optimized, but I guess it's automatic now. I guess it does it on its own, which is fine, but I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so let's let it rebuild. Alright, so of course it came up with the same route. So it thinks Track Sierra is the best thing going to get over there. That's, it believes that that's the quickest route. So I'm going to use Track Sierra. Track Sierra is going to become the route or the track that I'm going to try to use to get over there. Alright, so now I need to know how are we going to get to Track Sierra. So again, leaving the US, you got to do it a certain way. So there's this FAA website where they keep all these particular advisories. I'll leave a link in the description so you guys can use it if you choose to. But anyway, let's see. All I want is the route advisories. I don't need the ground delay programs and all the other stuff. And that's going to be for today, for Saturday. So make sure your date's correct. And then show selected. Alright, so what I'm going to look at is I'm going to do a search for NATOTS. Oh, can't type all of a sudden. There we go. So NATOTS is going to be your advisory for what we're doing here. So you click the advisory here, advisory 74. Click that. And it brings you to this. And so you have John F. Kennedy advisories. You have Newark advisories. For some reason that's not displaying properly. Newark advisories. You have, which one is this? For at or west of a line. So they want you to file that. If you're at or west of a line, DC, so this is coming out of DC Metro, so this would be like Dulles. Moving on down, then you have Philadelphia, and then you have Boston. So for us, it's going to be JFK. Now, if you're planning from another airport, then you wouldn't have to worry about this. But if you're coming off the eastern seaboard of the United States, then you got to go here. So track S, right here. So this is the route that they want, the feds do, to get to track S. All right. So what I'm just going to simply copy that. And then I'm going to go here. Well, hang on. Let me come back to that in a second. I'll get back to that in a minute. So I'm going to copy and paste there. And then I'm going to go auto plus again. Well, actually, I guess there's no reason to do that. So I just want to put that in. Yeah. So now I've got the first part of my route set in. So this is how they want you routing to get to track S. All right. So now that we have that in, now we need to take care of the rest of it from track Sierra on into Frankfurt. So this is where I go to this other website. And I did a tutorial on this website a while back. I'll leave a link in the description for this website, and I'll also leave a link to that video. I'm not going to explain how to use this particular website because I've done it already in a previous video. So if you need to know, please just go ahead and watch the other video, and it'll break it down how to use it. But for this purposes, I'm going to move forward as though you already know how to use it. All right, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put in KJFK, then I'm going to go to Frankfurt. I guess I can put an aircraft type in here. And what is it currently? Is 2120Z. So we'll just put 22Z because we want to route for the current time. And the point of using this is I want it to pass Eurocontrol validation. That's the reason why I go here. So to me, it's an easier way to do it than sitting there trying to build a route on your own. So I go to Oceanic Tracks. I know I'm going to be using Track Sierra. So I'm going to pre-pin that. So starting with Elsier, and then there's the whole track. All right, so I'm going to take direct out. All right, so now I want this website to build me a route from these points and then on to Frankfurt. So I'm going to hit search. All right, so in this first column, it's just filed routes that have already been filed before. They may or may not pass validation, so it's easier just to wait on the proposed routes to come back that are built automatically. All right, so we have 4 routes that have come back. You can kind of hit a pre-validation to see if it would pass, so no errors detected, so it looks good. So I'm going to hit map just to take a quick peek at it, make sure it makes sense, make sure it's not going all over the place. That looks good as I expected it to, so I'm going to hit copy. And there's the route from track S all the way across. So now I'm going to go back to PFPX, and I'm going to put that into PFPX. So let's paste it and build it. And there we have it. So now I should be able to pass validation. So I'm going to hit validate. Make sure my Z time's good, 2359, flight altitude 390. I don't know if that's what it'll actually be, but so I'll just put 350 for now. And it should validate. And then it did. So this flight's passed IFPS validation, so we're looking good. So now that we have our route taken care of, now, oh yeah, and going to Europe, you really shouldn't file on an actual arrival. I mean, I know this website gave us the ROLIS 1 mic, or ROLIS 1 mic, however you pronounce that. But in the real world, we don't file the actual arrival. We just file the transition fix, and that's all. And then when you get over there, ATC will assign you whatever whatever the descent's going to be. Now you need to plan enough fuel to make sure you can deal with whatever arrival they give you. So I don't know if you want to pad it by a little bit of fuel to make sure you have enough, or you could run the longest one, however you want to take care of that. But just make sure you have enough fuel to deal with that. All right, so now next for the alternate, you want to use an alternate that can accommodate your aircraft type. So right now we're using a 777, so I want to make sure I got an airport that can handle a 777. that's relatively close. And I also want to take a peek at the weather to see, is this just more of a paper alternate, as we often refer to it as in the dispatch world, or is this a situation where there is a legitimate chance that we might divert an aircraft? So let's go ahead and put in Frankfurt, and let's see what the weather is supposed to be at arrival. So at 7Z, it looks like it's supposed to be pretty much clear, greater than 6. So it looks like there's not going to be any issues as far as getting into Frankfurt. So yeah, you got wind direction 190 at 7. That's what it's showing here anyway. I don't see any issues there as far as getting in. So my point in this is I'm not going to use an alternate, or should I say I'm not going to try to find a perfect alternate, because I actually think that I may have to divert. You know, if this said, you know, a quarter-mile fog, or, you know, some really low ceilings, or the winds were just whipping, you know, some crazy wind speed or something like that, where I feel like there is a legitimate chance that I could end up diverting, then I would be looking for an airport that has solid weather forecast, where there's really nothing going on that's going to make that alternate not viable. But in this case, this is what I refer to, and a lot of people in dispatch will refer to as a paper alternate. It just basically means you got to legally have one, so you just put on the closest alternate you can to save on the fuel, but you really know that there's not going to be any issues and you should be able to get in. So unless you're in the real world, I mean, we would consider traffic and different things like that, but for flight simulator, I mean, really, outside of like really bad weather or something that, you know, or bad winds or something like that, I mean, you're gonna get in. There's really not any issues with traffic volume or anything like that. So I'm just looking for the closest alternate that I can get away with. So I guess I'll just go ahead and let it find its own. Let's see. So it just need one. So what's near that? Let me take a peek, see if I can find one myself. So let's see, large airports. You got Frankfurt Hahn. I'm not familiar with this airport, and like I said in a previous video, I try to use airports that would actually be in the outspec or something. You got Cologne. So let's let it find it on its own. You know what? That's not how you do it. So find destination alternates. So let's see what it comes up with. So there's Frankfurt Hahn. I mean, they got 12,000 foot runways. So we'll just go ahead and go with that. So I'll let that be the alternate. That's fine. All right. So now we got to get into the ETOPS setup. So first things first, really, before I get into ETOPS, I'm going to go ahead and do the Redispatch part of this. So you want to select a fix that gets you as close to Frankfurt as you can. It's usually about roughly 75% of the way en route that you want to try to pick your ETOPS alternate. But PFPX has an auto function here, and usually it works well. So I'll let that start me off to try to figure out a point to begin working off of. So let's see what it comes up with. So Brexit, which is kind of ironic considering what happened in Europe last month, but never mind the political talk. So Brexit is the fix that it picked, and then it looks like it's using what airport is that? Yeah, so I'm not familiar with that airport at all, so I don't really like that. So I'm just gonna use I'm gonna see if I can use Dublin with Shannon. So EIDW and EIN. Let's see if they're weather. Let me condense it real quick to get a glance. So we're talking about, so, oh yeah, and the point I'm going to divert is going to be about 5. It's going to be somewhere between 4 and 6Z, give or take. So we're talking 1,800 foot SIGs greater than 6 statute, and 1,800 foot SIGs greater than 6 for both airports. So those seem to be viable airports. I can expand it to check the wind speeds and make sure we don't have any crazy fast winds. So 270 at 14, no big deal there. And Shannon 200 at 8, no big deal there. So I use those two. I'm familiar with those airports. I know where they are. I'm more comfortable with that. So I'm just going to go ahead and change these to EIDW. And I'm going to put Shannon on the other side. That way I can kind of overfly the alternate to the dispatch alternate. Alright, so let me back this out. So basically the idea is I'm going to figure out at this point whether or not I have to stop and land because I don't have enough fuel. And I'll explain that a little bit more depth here in just a second what the redispatch alternate is all about and the redispatch fix. So in any case, exit, and so I'm going to fly to Dublin. But if something goes wrong in Dublin, and I'm going to Shannon, which is kind of on the same side that I'm coming in from in the first place. So let's see if I can get it to find a route automatically. That's decent. Yeah, that works fine. And then fine for that as well. Alright, that looks good. So we got our routes to our redispatch airport, and then that airport has to also have an alternate itself. So whatever airport you're using, like I said, I don't think PFPX will let you get away with it. Well, I guess it depends on how you set up your fuel policy, but you're supposed to have a redispatch alternate for your redispatch airport. Alright, so what exactly is redispatch all about? So basically, I feel like most people probably know this, but just in case they don't, regulations say you have to carry 10% of the burn in minutes on an international flight. And when you have a really long flight, that can be a lot of fuel. So a lot of times, you know, you can use the different op specs. So there's an op spec that allows you to do a redispatch fix, and so what that means is you only have to carry the burn from your redispatch fix to your redispatch, or excuse me, to your intended destination, which in this case is Frankfurt. So instead of having to carry 10% of the burn in minutes from JFK all the way to Frankfurt, I only have to carry the burn 10% in minutes from Brexit all the way to Frankfurt. So that cuts down on the required fuel quite a bit. The only catch or caveat is there's the fuel on the flight plan. You have to meet that fuel requirement at Brexit in order to be redispatched or re-released in the air. So you would actually be doing another release while the flight is airborne. And you have to have the fuel requirements in order to be re-released to go to Frankfurt. So technically speaking, I guess you could say that your intended destination is Frankfurt, but you're really releasing the flight to Dublin. And you can continue to Frankfurt predicated on the idea that you have the fuel requirements at Brexit to continue to Frankfurt. So that's kind of the structure in which that works. So make sure that you're giving yourself a bit of a buffer there, and we'll get into that in a second, to make sure that you're meeting those fuel requirements. Otherwise, legally speaking, you got to drop into Dublin now. Alright, so moving forward, so now that we got that, let's go into the ETOPS section. I did do a video on ETOPS, and I detailed it out quite a bit if you guys want to watch that video. So I won't go into great detail on ETOPS here. But basically, you want to make sure your airports are adequate with weather. So let's see, let's go JFK, and then we can go Boston, and then what is this, Gander, CYQX. And then we've got a gap in the action here now going across the pond, so you got to pick up now with Shannon, and then at that point we can just use Frankfurt. So we have our adequate airport set up now. So I've got to basically cover this ground because, as you can see, I'm outside of my 60-minute rings. So first thing I want to do is see if 120 will cover it. I always turn icing on. It's just better to turn it on and be done with it than to not turn it on and end up wishing you had. So it's going to be between between Gander and Shannon. So let's see if it'll connect. Not quite on that. So I wonder if I can get to the Azores and make it work. I don't think so, but let's see. It's worth a try. I try to do 120 if I can. Because me as a pilot, I'd rather have the closest alternate as I can than the further one. Yeah, so that's not going to work either. So it's going to have to end up being 180-minute ETOPS. So let's go ahead and put 180 in there for Gander and Shannon and be done with it. Alright, so there we go. All right, so I'll have to be fine with that. So we have our ETOPS setup done. So now we've covered the ground in between. All right, speed, altitude, and holding. On this particular flight, I'm actually going to use this because when you're flying the tracks, you're supposed to plan a fixed Mach and a fixed altitude. Generally speaking, you don't plan a step climb on the tracks. Now, that's not to say that ATC won't let you do that in the real world when you get out there and you know, if you want to request it and they decide that they'll let you have it. But you want to plan as though you're not going to step, just in case they can't accommodate you for that step climb. So there's no way for me to know what speed I want to try to file at unless I run the flight plan first to find that out. Now, I'll explain that here in more detail in a second. And this isn't going to be United Airlines now, it's going to be Delta Airlines. Anyway, so let's, I was just checking that out to see what it was real quick. So let's go ahead and run this and see what it comes up with real quick. All right, and you know, I actually realized I did make a slight mistake here. I should have ran my takeoff performance first, so forgive me on that. I probably should have done that the very first thing I did when I started this, but slipped my mind for a second. So hang on here, let me just run this real quick. So I'm just going to calculate it out of max ATOG. I want to figure out what my maximum allowable takeoff weight is. So I'm calculating that max. Hit apply for that. Same thing for the landing weight. Calculate that. Hit apply. All right, so now I want to compute it from there. All right, so let's just use a flight plan format everybody's familiar with. So I got 3 warnings here. All right, let's see, from Frankfurt to EDQ Golf, altitude Bombay 13,000 feet is below minimum en-route altitude of 14,000 feet. So basically what that's saying is there's a minimum en-route altitude, and for whatever reason the flight planner put it below it. I'm okay with that because in the real world I can always just fly the minimum en-route altitude if need be, so I'm not gonna, you know, hem-haw about that too much. It's just kind of an informational kind of thing. So I'm updating the performance data here real quick to make sure everything works. All right, so here's our flight plan. So I'm going to go down to Redispatch portion, and then after that I'm going to go down to the en route speed portion. Those two things I want to reference. So you see RD extra fuel, Redispatch extra fuel is 0. All right, because I didn't put any extra fuel on there. This is where you want to start trying to figure out your buffer to make sure you've got enough fuel when you get over there to the Redispatch fix. So you see I have the 10% burn right here. That's going to be 11 minutes, and then the alternate, the international holding fuel. So all your fuels are dire, and it's going to take 7 hours and 7 minutes. What's the ETA? I don't often use PFPX flight planner format. I usually use a United format that I created. I'm just more familiar with it, being that, you know, I work for them, so I just look at it all the time. So I try to stay uniform. But so where is the arrival time, the ETA on this thing? Let's see. Where is the arrival time? Is it up at the top and I just overlooked it? Why don't I see it on here? I see the departure time. Oh well. Well, anyway, so next thing I want to reference is the the speed over the track. So right here we're going to enter LSAR. It's going to be at flight level 370, and the speed is the Mach speed not listed on this one. Yeah, it looks like it isn't. So I guess I'll use another format so I can at least try to see what the Mach speed is. Alright, so Mach speed at LSAR is going to be right here. So it's going to be Mach 822. So I would plan for Mach 2 going across the tracks at a flight altitude of 370. Alright, so going back to general, so now I want to add a little extra fuel here. So I'm just going to put in, let's see, extra time. What's the format? Should be 30, is that the format? Yeah. So I'm just going to put in an extra 30 minutes. That's fine. And then also going back to speed altitude, so we're going to put in LSAR here, or LSIR, however that's pronounced, or LSIR. And then flight altitude is going to be 370 because that's what we had on our other flight plan. And then it's going to be Mach 8.2 going across there. And then at Bexit, which is the end of the track, then we're going to go back to optimum and let it climb to its optimum altitude, and we're going to go back to a cost index of 10. Alright, so let's compute that. Alright, so it looks like it didn't change the... Oh yeah, it did change it a little bit. So now we got extra fuel, so it's going to be an extra 6,800 pounds of fuel now. Let's go back to PPFPX. Take our look at our fuel ladder. So now, as you see here, Redispatch extra fuel has been placed there. So this is my buffer. So I'd have to overburn my flight plan by almost 7,000 pounds in order to not be able to continue once I get to Bexit intersection for my Redispatch fix. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. I don't think that will be an issue. Oh, actually, here's the times right here. I was looking for that. All right, so planning at Frankfurt, let's see, standard time arrival is 7:39. Scheduled, oh no, excuse me, yeah, scheduled 7:40. So let's see, ETA is 7:30Z. So I'm not going to change the cost index because it looks like that gets me into Frankfurt on time. Let's see if I'm reading this right anyway. So 7:30Z. Estimated landing 7:22Z. So yeah, we'll be getting in at 7:30, so we'll be 9 minutes early. Now I would take a peek at this en route, and I might change it once I get in the air if I end up falling behind or something like that. But no need to change the cost index. But let's say this right here said ETA 8Z, which would have me arriving 21 minutes late. Then I would go start changing the cost index and bumping it up until until I could arrive on time. So I wouldn't just bump it up to its highest point. I would gradually move up until I get a cost index that would get me there on time. That way you're being as efficient as you can be. ETOPS alternates and weather NOTAM periods, so you want to make sure that your weather is good during these periods, which you've already done, because that's the times that we feel like we might end up using it. And that's about it. So that's how you would plan a flight from the U.S., particularly the Eastern Seaboard, over to Europe. Now, if you were planning, say, San Francisco to Frankfurt or something like that, which would end up taking you way north over Greenland or something, that would be north of these tracks, then you wouldn't worry about going to that website and trying to figure out how ATC wants you to be routed from the Eastern Seaboard to the tracks. These are just highly congested areas, lots of traffic, so ATC has a particular way in which they want you to get over there. But if you're not going through here or anything, you don't qualify for that. You don't need to worry about it. Just take care of your own routing, however you want to do it, until you get over to Frankfurt, and then make sure you've got a route that passes validation from Eurocontrol once you enter Eurocontrolled airspace. Let's see, yeah, the same errors that we had before. So that's about it. So from here, if you're comfortable with that, you can, now you can actually go back and redo your takeoff performance now, since you have an actual weight that you'll be at. So now instead of planning at max, you can plan for the actual takeoff weight that you'll have. So you can calculate that. Alright, so here's your, it's going to be flaps 5, D rate, takeoff 158C, climb limitation, so that's going to be the thing that's holding you back the most coming out of there. But looks like it'll be fine, so you can go ahead and apply that. Do the same for the landing weight, now that you know what your actual landing weight is going to be. Calculate that. And while it's working, I also say sometimes when you're planning these redispatch airports, you'll find out that you calculate and then PFPX tells you that you're overweight for your redispatch alternate. So basically it's protecting to make sure that you're not going to land overweight at your redispatch alternate the way you have it planned. So you'd have to take weight off, whether it be fuel or payload, in order to make that weight, or you'd have to change the redispatch alternate if you can, and see if that helps. But you would have to make sure that you're protecting for your landing weight at your redispatch alternate, at your redispatch airport and your redispatch airport alternate. So once I get all that done, I would just hit release and go ahead and release it. Yeah, that's fine. No issues with the warnings. So now we have a release flight plan. You can take that. You can send it to TopCat if you want. You can file on VATSIM. You can see it in SkyVector if you want. Obviously, you can save it, print it. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff you can do with it up here after you've already released it. But that's it. So that's video number 1. I'll be doing, you know, how to dispatch from different regions. For example, I'll do the opposite of this, how you want to plan from Europe back to the U.S. You know, various places, you know, point to points around the world. So there'll be a series on these videos coming up. So anyway, I hope that helped. Leave comments in the comments section if you have any questions or anything like that. Until next time, we'll see you.